Hellboy stole the life I might have had and banished me into an existence of misery. I now only live to kill him.
I too have suffered at Hellboy's hands, so I know your pain.
Hello and welcome to a hellish edition of the Bargain Binge podcast, and that's not being cute. This is gonna suck. I am the servant to Hell's General Vine, Dylan, and with me as always is...
Hello. Join us as we take a trip on down to hell. Boy.
And also...
or girl.
And it's me, Aaron, Guillermo del Toro's bad luck charm.
You don't need to be his bad luck charm. He's his own bad luck charm. Maybe it's his glasses or something.
His cute little glasses.
If you chart it out, it started when I was born, man. Or is close.
Maybe it's one of the many horror artifacts that he has from various movies in his mansion that is causing him some sort of undue bad luck. Maybe it's like Jason's cod piece or Michael Myers' coffee mug or something.
Yeah, what we're saying is Guillermo del Toro needs a fucking exorcist. He needs it soon.
Yeah, I mean, he must have been cursed or something. Like, you gotta get those flop demons out of you.
Yes, we are together, the Bargain Binge podcast, the last bastion of physical media in your wallet, and we randomly pick a movie from a bargain bin and review it for your entertainment and not necessarily our own. Why are we discussing Guillermo del Toro's awful streak of luck? Well, today I pulled the movie out of the bin, and I have to just right off the bat apologize for this, but here is the clip of me pulling this movie. Okay, another $5 Walmart bargain bin, and we're going in. Oh boy, it's Hellboy, which Evan and I have seen, but we have a lot we can say about this thing, so...
Boo. Boo.
Yeah, boo.
Boo.
I'm sorry, guys. It's Hellboy. It's Hellboy.
2019.
Hellboy 2019, not the well-regarded Guillermo del Toro movie or the sequel from the 2000s, but Hellboy. I got it from the $5 bin at Walmart on DVD. And because I am such a dedicated journalist and I have so much integrity, I just couldn't let it stop there because I was aware of a documentary that's included on the Blu-ray version of the movie. So I went ahead and went out and bought the 4K Ultra HD copy of this movie so I could not only tell you about the documentary included on the Blu-ray and 4K versions, but also give you a wide range of what it looks like on all of its different formats. And this is the part where I would usually ask Evan what his reaction to me pulling it from the bin was, but thing is, I have it right here in our text message thread.
Oh my god, you're actually going to read this?
Jesus, I don't want to sit through Hellboy again, LMAO. And my response, you literally slept through it, jackass. And it's true. We saw this movie at the AMC, and AMC Prime, I think, is their premium format. Like, the biggest screen in the whole house.
I'm in shock that for a second that slipped my mind. I haven't been to a goddamn movie theater in so long. I forgot I had a subscription service.
Yeah, we had AMC Plus, and and because we could watch it in any format we wanted, we saw it opening weekend in AMC Prime, which is the biggest house in the whole theater, huge screen, massive 7.1 surround,
super
very
comfy
nice
recliners.
Yeah, but
to which facilitated my falling asleep. I'm just going to defend myself real quick.
You fuck you.
Yeah, no, bro.
I cannot tell you, other than this instance, I cannot tell you a time in which I've legitimately fallen asleep during a movie. Like, It's just a thing with me. I find it hard to sleep in like environments that are not my bed or a bed. So it doesn't happen a lot.
A bed? How many
Just
of those are you getting around?
All right, just a bed.
Did you fall asleep in 1940s classic Little Foxes?
Oh yes, I did.
Because I sure did.
The mise en scène, it's so beautiful. It just will put you in a little nap throughout the 4 hours of that movie.
See, Aaron. The difference is that Little Foxes, despite being at like 9 a.m. while we watched it during our class, I fell asleep for approximately 10 or 20 minutes. But Hellboy, I missed like 75% of this film.
I'd estimate 60% of the movie. He fell asleep somewhere in the middle of the first act and didn't wake up until like the climax of the movie.
End.
I just want to note, in 40s drama, Little Foxes, with this film, because it's so disconnected, you might like wake up and have no idea what's going on. But with a film like that, I fell asleep and I woke up and I was like, oh, what's it been, 30 seconds? They're still arguing about the same thing. And I went to the bathroom and I checked my phone, and then I saw I had been asleep for nearly an hour. And I think I got the better cut of that movie.
Yeah. It's better than a TV cut even. Your brain did the work for you.
Got the ultra super streamlined cut.
While Evan the degenerate wasted his prime viewing of this by sleeping, I got to watch it in glorious 480p.
Yeah, what was your reaction to me pulling it? That's a good transition.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the original Del Toro movies, and I've read a good amount of Hellboy stuff, though I am far from caught up. I've just read a few volumes of it. I'm a big fan of the character through the media I've consumed, and so I've always been curious about this because, I kind of like the director's other B trash work, and I was like, okay, maybe this will be fine. And I think David Harbour is about as good of a replacement for Perlman as you could get. So
in theory, because he was coming off of Stranger Things off of this, and it's mentioned a million times on the bonus features. Everyone is very high on his performance as the officer in Stranger Things.
He's got a good face for it, and a physicality.
Until you guys came back from that original screening being like, oh, that was I'm not going to spoil the opinion, but certain negative thoughts were had.
It was dog good.
Dog good.
It was doggone fantastic.
Doggone amazing. But until that point, I had some hope that it would be fine. And even when sitting down for it this time, I had some hope that maybe it would have some things that I liked the director does, like some B-movie stuff that would amuse me, and but certain things happened in the film, and I had to sit through it, and I sure did.
Yeah, Neil Marshall is such a great... I've only seen The Descent, but I absolutely adore that movie. The things that he's able to pull off, and the way he's able to portray that tight, claustrophobic area, and the character development is so well done that it's how could you go wrong with Neil Marshall?
Yeah.
But we obviously will get into how that went wrong, because this is a very infamous production nightmare with a lot of infighting going on behind the scenes. But before we get to that, I will read to you the back of the box, since I pulled this from the bin. To compare the two cases, since I have the DVD and the 4K, they have different art on the cover. I can't tell you if I prefer one or the other, but the backs are nearly identical, so I can still read you the stuff. We got pull quotes on here. A quote from CNET that's, "It's absolutely deranged, and it's great." Ooh. And then also from The Wrap, "A horrifyingly good time," which is, that it's a real opinion when the critic writes in the most vague, these two words don't usually go together. Also,
I feel like that's just a phrase that someone's said a million times about a million different movies.
Well, yeah, that's exactly. It's just something that's so dissolved throughout time because it's been used so many times. But it's the point is, horrifying next to good, that's not what you'd anticipate. Isn't that ironic?
Subverted my expectations.
It certainly did. And the the body text says, in red it says Hellboy is back, and then it switches to white, and he's on fire. In this action-packed story ripped from the pages of Mike Mignola's seminal work, the legendary half-demon superhero, David Harbour, is called to the English countryside to battle a trio of rampaging giants. There, he discovers the Blood Queen, Nimue? I know they say it a million times.
They say it so many times.
Nimue.
Nimue.
It's Nimue. It's like Celtic or something. A resurrected ancient sorceress thirsting to avenge a past betrayal. Suddenly caught in a clash between the supernatural and the human, Hellboy is now hell-bent on stopping Nimue without triggering the end of the world. So Nimue is spelled Nimue, but, it's Nimue, and in English that doesn't read very well. But the bonus features, as appearing on the DVD, I'll read first. We have deleted scenes and previs. But on the 4K and Blu-ray, as I alluded to earlier, there is also a quote-unquote 3-part documentary called Tales of the Wild Hunt, Hellboy Reborn. And I have some details on that. It's been referred to as feature-length documentary, but that's kind of misleading, as we'll get to later. But the back is pretty accurate. I mean, that's as coherently as you could retell this in a paragraph, probably.
Yeah. No, we've had some extremely inaccurate back of the boxes, but that pretty much just sums up what it can.
Well, yeah. The whole movie's a mess, and we'll just get right into the production problems with this. Is the reason it is such a mess is that there were so many different parties behind the scenes with so many different concepts of what they wanted to happen, and a hierarchy of power that made some people be able to supersede the other people in their ideas. Thus, everything is just kind of a jumbled mess. This is this person's thing, this is that person's thing. And movie making is a collaborative process, and a lot of people put their hands on everything, and that's how it makes it work. So it's not really a problem that there's so many people having input, it's the fact that they're all completely conflicting on what they want this movie to be.
Yeah,
Right.
And generally there's only one or two people steering the ship.
Yes.
Everybody contributes and puts things on the movie, but usually, one or two people kind of generally take the other people's input and put it in a direction. Well, this seems like everybody had their hands on the wheel and we're just spinning it in random directions.
Wait! Two people can't drive at the same time?
You're right. We should all drive.
It's ideal for there to be a singular vision and everyone else just kind of contributes and is more or less on the same page, and they all have this common goal of reaching that singular vision. So clearly that's not what happened here.
Yeah, well, in many behind the scenes things on good things, you'll have all the actors will be like, I'm here to present the director's vision, and the producers are like, we put all the people in place to try to get the director's vision, and if you subscribe to auteur theory, that all kind of makes sense, it all gels. I mean, there's conflicting ideas as to how movies are made, but generally you want someone that can tell people yes or no, is this right for this project?
Right. Or else it's just a jumbled mishmash of different ideas.
Yes. I'll try to bring the story of Hellboy together chronologically from what I could piece together from IMDb trivia facts and some odds and ends articles. So I could never really find anything concrete that led to historical record of many things happening. So I don't know how accurate this is. And I want to say that a lot of this is allegations from other people being slung at other people. So don't get litigious with me, Lionsgate. Please. So it starts in 2013, 2014. A child in Make-A-Wish submits their wish to the organization that he wants to spend the day with his favorite superhero, which is Hellboy, specifically the portrayal of Ron Perlman in Guillermo del Toro's movies. So all the people that worked on the makeup and stuff very heroically came together put Ron Perlman into the chair for 4 hours, did all of his makeup, and he spent the day with this Make-A-Wish child. And this is very touching. Mm-hmm. And as a result, it touched Guillermo del Toro, and he said, oh, let's make a third Hellboy. This is the time. I have some drive to do it now. Ron Perlman wants to do it. Let's make this movie.
Oh, and I want to note that in terms of popularity, Ron Perlman's at his peak because Sons of Anarchy is like the second biggest show on cable. And, you know, like, there's actually like stuff pointing towards like, I don't know, everyone's kind of been doing semi-hot stuff, so it's like, okay, maybe we can bring this back, even though the first two movies didn't do very well in the box office. They were both saved by really, really strong, DVD rentals and purchases and stuff.
Yeah, home video.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about this Make-A-Wish story. It's crazy to think nice. that this Shakespearean tale of tragedy has such a humble and cute beginning.
It's so charming and nice, and it just makes you remember how nice of a guy Guillermo del Toro is.
Dude, who would have thought that a Hollywood disaster story would start with Guillermo del Toro as a nice guy?
GDT and Ron Perlman are really cool dudes from what I can glean from sources all over the place. And so then Guillermo del Toro starts hyping it up on social media. He's trying to, prove to Lionsgate, who has the movie rights to the comic books, that there is demand for this. And he seems to successfully do that. So then he starts getting in talks with Mike Mignola to, put together this Hellboy 3 and try to get it made. And at some point, I don't know if this is before or after, he went to Mike and said, maybe we could do this in a comic book form. But the way Mike responds to that question is informed by the rest of the story. So he goes to Mike and we got to make this. Guillermo lays out his plans for the movie and what he wants to do with the characters, all that kind of stuff. But something about it turns Mike Mignola off, and he's like, no, this is not going to happen. And that might not be the primary reason for it, but it's one of the reasons that leads to the project moving away from Guillermo del Toro, and Lionsgate takes him off of the project, or he leaves. This is all, questionable, but he's no longer attached on the project. Yeah, because of creative differences with Mike Mignola. And because of that, Ron Perlman leaves because he very strongly believes that Del Toro is the man to do it.
I can understand that. Del Toro and Perlman have been working together since day one, and Del Toro did do a very good job adapting the comic book. His movies are a little bit more gentle and romantic than the comic book, but
that's his whole shtick, is he likes fantasy and romanticism. So his approach was very distinct in his, but it lent itself very well to the screen. So whether or not it represents Mike Mignola's comics and vision on the comics are not movies.
No, and it's not that it's wildly disparate. It's just tonally a little bit more Guillermo's. But I very much wonder what was the sticking point between them. But I guess with all this behind the scenes chaos, we'll never really find out.
We'll never know.
My bet, I feel like a lot of creative differences with that are this character dies, or this character does this thing, and it's always very specifically that character wouldn't do that wouldn't happen to that character. I mean, it happens. Creative differences.
Hellboy would never drink Pabst. You can't do this.
He would never drink Pabst. He's a Pib man, never Dr. Pepper. How fucking dare you?
And he eats his popcorn only without butter.
Oh, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
The GDT would be right to change that if that was the case.
Well, Mignola thought it was the devil half of him, but
Okay, that's fair. So this leads to the project just kind of being up in the air. So then they have to, put all the pieces together, find a new director, make a new identity for the whole entire project, and start anew. but the whole entire aim of it was to put Mike Mignola at the center and let him drive it, to give it the separation from the Del Toro movies, which they were, from the bonus features you'll see, they are very intent on being different from Del Toro's thing.
This one feels very different than the other films.
It was very different to the previous movies which I had seen. I felt they were trying to achieve something new and a bit different.
In order to relaunch the franchise and create something new and something that hadn't really been represented the same way on screen before.
It's a different version of Hellboy than we've seen in theaters so far.
We get to tell his origin in a way that's never been told in any of the earlier movies.
Whether or not that means making it good. So then comes the probably what destroys this movie, and I'm not sure if this is after they start production or in the timeline. It's kind of messy, but they get Neil Marshall to attach to direct, and he has his crew members. David Harbour's attached as Hellboy, and everything else is filled out. At some point in this process, Deadpool comes out and becomes the most successful rated R movie of all time.
Mm-hmm. Then he got an idea. An awful idea.
Lionsgate
got a wonderful, awful idea.
What if Hellboy was Deadpool?
Exactly. It's Hellboy somewhere between pre-production and production, and maybe somewhere in post. Suddenly the vision changes, and now it's time to become this kind of Marvel-esque Deadpool kind of deal.
See, I didn't know the whole Deadpool connection. I didn't think about that, but what I was thinking about a lot is just Marvel. Like,
yes.
Okay, we need to make Hellboy make all these quips and funny jokes, because that's what they do in the Marvel movies, and that's kind of how I read it. But it's definitely both. I mean,
yeah.
I desperately wish this came out after Joker.
Oh my god,
that would be so funny.
Jesus Christ,
we will live in a demon society.
So that changes the whole scope of the project, and yeah, it's playing off of the Marvel quippiness, and of course that's what popularized it. But Deadpool is like, there's a market in making this edgy, and that's not necessarily, I mean, I'm not an expert on Hellboy as a character or anything, but that's not necessarily what the comics are. Am I too far off, Aaron?
No, he's definitely not an edgy Deadpool type. Like, of course there's edge to the internal conflict, demon man thing.
Yeah.
But it's not that kind of like a teenager child edge that Deadpool like pulls from. And that's not even like I don't actually mean that negatively towards Deadpool. It's just that's not what Hellboy is.
He's a funny character and he makes quips, but they're not the type of kind of like I don't know how to portray and say.
He does quips, but maybe it's not like every line. You know,
yeah. He's more generally reserved.
It's like,
yeah,
no exaggeration. It's pretty much every other line.
It's militant.
He quips, but it's like in the moment, and it plays more to his character. But the quips in this movie are not a product of Hellboy as his own being, but as this is what other movies are written like.
And a lot of the humor with him is that he's just very like blunt and to the point, and not that he's like a trickster joker.
Or yeah, he's not like sassy or like, sarcastic.
There's humor that comes from him, but he's not doing like an open mic bit.
Yes.
This change all happens during production. Various different changes happen. To that end, apparently there were rewrites happening just constantly throughout the shoot that it just made it confusing. People just didn't know what was happening a lot of the time. And allegedly, the changes were being made by David Harbour and Ian McShane. And that was portrayed by some party as a bad thing, because it's like, there's who's running this fucking thing, It's just everyone's doing everything, but then the producers fired back and said, this did not happen, but if it did, it would be okay. Which lets you know that it's
almost certainly
probably did.
You know, we took some time and we developed the script and we developed the story a little further. And
he's bringing so much, not only to the character, but to the script. He loves to ad-lib. He's a writer himself. He's a big presence. You know immediately when David's on set.
But yeah, it's not inherently a bad thing for rewrites, but like, who's running the asylum? The inmates cannot be running the asylum. And while those changes were also happening, the producers were not letting Neil Marshall do anything that he wanted, it seemed. Straight off of the bat, so the Blood Queen, Nimue, she has a tree that she derives her power from or something. I don't care. But the director had a very strong idea of what the tree was going to look like. And it breaks down in what I've read that he wanted it to be asymmetrical, but the producers wanted it to be symmetrical. And they immediately just told him, no, it can't be asymmetrical.
That's such a minute detail. So that, I guess that gives you an insight to like how much they wanted to control if they weren't even letting him do that.
Yeah, but if you see the actual movie as it's come out, the tree, after all it's said and done, it's asymmetrical. So in post, they made it asymmetrical anyway. So the whole fight was null.
Yeah, to be honest, I couldn't remember what it looked like. But yeah. That's wild.
You can feel some of the disruptions in this production from the couple deleted scenes there are, because...
Yeah, well, we'll get to that.
It's fascinating.
It's fascinating, the changes that you can see just between the final product and the deleted scenes that they went out of their way to include on home media, which they didn't have to do.
No.
They didn't have to give you that insight into all that kind of shit, but they did.
It's true. Yeah. Just as a little precursor, you rarely see deleted scenes that actually are just good and probably should have been in the movie. And I'm not going to say that's all of them, but we'll get to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they just usually, or you immediately sit there and go, oh, that had no purpose in the story. Okay.
Uh-huh. Or there's like a string of stuff that sets up something that never pays off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, normally you get it instantaneously.
These bonus features are like, oh, I can see director versus producer versus actor. But so like very early on into the production, maybe related to the sorts of, quabbles that they were having with the shit involving the tree, producers Lloyd Levin and Lawrence Gordon are the party that is clashing with Neil Marshall most of the time, according to these articles. They fired Neil Marshall's cinematographer to send a message that he was not in control. That's what Neil Marshall says. Of course, the producer's lawyers say otherwise, but that is the environment on the set.
That's crazy. How far into production did they fire a cinematographer?
The way it's phrased in all these things, it's very early. I think it was like the first few days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the other guy isn't credited, so I assumed that it was pretty early.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's still, if true, that's still crazy, but I guess the timing of that could have been worse.
It kind of reads to me between the deleted scenes and stuff that it seems like maybe, from what I can parse, and this is completely an outsider's perspective, but it seems like they had him when they were doing exteriors, specifically in the scene with the giants, because those scenes look very different from everything else.
Yeah.
So that's my bet, is he was able to get in and do some of like a specific scene, and then pretty much he was gone.
Damn. Could you imagine?
No, I can't imagine being like committed to a project where you had to work with the director, get everything in line, you know what you're gonna light, how you're gonna light it. These are the shots, and then
you shoot one scene, and then you're packing your bags and you're going home.
That's so incredibly fucked.
Yeah.
That sucks so hard. I'm pretty sure that's like the cinematographer that Neil Marshall worked with on his other films, which is very important to Neil Marshall's aesthetic because he has a very strong visual style that's there's a lot of stark contrast. It's got this chiaroscuro kind of element to it, this noir kind of strong highlights, deep low lights.
Yeah, and that's perfect for Hellboy. Like, if you've ever looked at Hellboy art, Mike Mignola draws it like on black paper. He makes the darkness like the emphasis point of like a lot of, like, of most shots, and it's very atmospheric, and so like that cinematographer Neil Marshall were like a logically really good pick for this. And then when you look at the movie, there's none of that aesthetic in it, pretty much.
He wanted to take the colors of the original Hellboy and push them to more extreme places.
The use of negative space in Hellboy, it can't be understated. There's so many deep blacks, just like no gradation or anything, just black and light, and that's such a strong element of the visual style of Hellboy. And theoretically, this movie trying to be more true to Mike Mignola's creative vision, that is a perfect way to handle it. And that's the whole gimmick, is this is Mike Mignola's Hellboy the way you have not seen it before.
I feel like we've kind of stuck quite closely to what is in the comics.
We're doing, in some ways, something that's much more close to my material.
We really wanted to reconnect with the source material.
It created an opportunity to do a Hellboy movie that was more faithful to what Mike Mignola had created.
We're creating a new variation on the Mignola Hellboy.
There's a couple scenes in which there are spots that are just completely black, and the color clipping and artifacting on the DVD transfer was like shocking. I don't know. Oh, I guess, yeah, you watched the Blu-ray, so you probably didn't.
I have the full scope because, well, between you and me, I have the full scope because I watched the 4K, and to refresh myself today, I just threw the Blu-ray on in the background. I really didn't gain much from it. Not to get too into it because we cover the video at the end. It does look better not on DVD, but like...
Yeah, I would have to assume.
People weren't thinking about perhaps the versatility of the visuals at points in the production of this. But the last detail I have to mention on the production element before we get into the plot is that allegedly David Harbour would be so frustrated with the production that he would storm off, and he and Neil Marshall butted heads a lot. It seems that Neil Marshall did not want David Harbour to play the character, period. So then that led to a lot of tension between the two of them.
Nah, man, he was just deep into his character. He was character acting. He was pissy, and he had a short temper. That's why he stormed off, because he was trying to be Hellboy.
Because I have to play an angry, demon who's conflicted and all that stuff. There are some days where I just get socially very awkward and very strange, and wind up kind of sometimes even like getting angry and stuff like that. And
I don't even know if that's what Hellboy's character is usually. I don't know a lot about Hellboy.
I mean, he makes jokes. Like, I don't want to try to make it sound like he's not a character who does comedy. It's just he's not just a pure every second quip machine.
But yeah, I mean, he is pissy. His whole thing is, he doesn't love being part demon. So
yeah,
and he's conflicted with which side to trust, the other demons or the humans, because he was raised with both.
Yeah, he's torn between two very different worlds.
Yeah. And he shaves his horns for a sense of normality, even though that doesn't make him look any more normal.
It's a good character, and Mike Mignola has a lot of interesting ideas. They don't play out well here.
Don't his horns also... Well, we see it in this movie a little bit, but don't they give him like more power, right? Or is that just...
I think they're just representing that when he's going full demon, that he has the full horns. I don't know if they're directly
when he's going sicko mode.
Yeah,
they might just jut out, perhaps. I don't know, but that brings us to the meat of the podcast. Unfortunately, we will now talk about the actual movie Hellboy.
Halfway through.
That's fine. That's better. That's good. God,
well, it's good
God
because
bless.
we're not going to be able to recount this in any logical way.
This is a mishmash of like 5 different Hellboy stories, and it kind of shows there's a lot of conflicting kind of stuff going on. And the details that we do relate from this will probably show you that, but this opens up on one of the ugliest instances of black and white cinematography that I have ever seen in my entire life.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a scene where we're introducing the Arthurian lore element of the story, and Nimue is a blood witch, and she's trying to bring the apocalypse or what. She's spreading a plague to kill everyone. Arthur and his knights stop her, and they trap her in collectathon boxes throughout the planet. Not mother boxes per se, but boxes for sure.
It's very similar.
The mother boxes.
But this scene is the ultimate underlying example of the behind the scenes shit that was going on throughout the entire production process, because one of the deleted scenes included on this is the original cut of that scene, which is as a starter, it's not in black and white.
It's in color. Yeah. It's almost like they shot it in color, and then when the studio must have said, hey, I think this needs to be in black and white because people won't understand that it's a flashback. and then they put it in black and white, and it looks like crap because it wasn't shot for that.
Yeah, no, like, the original version of the scene isn't, like, amazing looking, but it is a vast improvement, like, immediately.
Yeah. Well, the original version, assuming... We're just gonna assume it's the Neil Marshall cut. It's very fantasy-like.
Hashtag release the Neil Marshall cut.
Unironically, yes. I would love to see some sort of semblance of what his original idea for this movie is.
Yeah, what he was trying to do. Yeah. No, because, it has more of a, like, the early 80s Excalibur adaptation. Like, it has, like, this, like, weird, dirty fantasy thing that I, like, enjoy.
With these really cool, like, vibrant hues to make it look like, fantastical. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point of the scene. But then with all the color stripped, and there's no contrast to support the black and white, it just looks like dreck. And then on top of it, they added a narration from Ian McShane's character, who plays Hellboy's dad.
The year is 517 AD, known as the Dark Ages. And for fucking good reason.
For no fucking reason, when the whole entire scene, as it's originally cut, is told through dialogue. And rewatching the Blu-ray today, the one thing I caught was there's a point where Ian McShane is like, and then Arthur showed up to the tree.
And so at Pendle Hill, beneath an ancient oak tree, King Arthur were forced to surrender to Nimue.
And then the next line of dialogue is Nimue saying,
"The great King Arthur comes to Pendle Hill."
Arthur, you're at the tree.
They chop the scene up. They cover it with a bunch of, like, shitty dialogue. Like, they call it the Middle Ages for a fucking reason or whatever. It's fucking terrible. It's, like, so immediately off-putting. And the deleted scene version is perfectly fine. I liked it, like, well enough that I would have felt better going into the film.
It went for something, which surprised me. I was so surprised by how different it was. I honestly, like, if that was the opening of the movie, I would have had way higher expectations.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you still would have been disappointed, I guess. But
But it does actually, on the assumption that scene, like, the differences in that scene are emblematic of what Neil Marshall wanted for the movie, which, based on the information we have, is likely true. Like, it seems like he had a much grander, more fantastical vision for this, and then they chopped it up into some Deadpool bullshit.
For some reason, thought that the audience was too stupid to understand, like, anything that wasn't, like, directly stated in your face. It's black and white. That means it took place in the past.
And that's so funny because, like, this movie is so reliant on exposition and flashbacks, and there's so many other flashbacks in the movie that aren't in black and white.
Yeah, so it's like, why did you bother?
But jumping off of that, I'm just going to try to blow through the plot of this, just kind of in very broad strokes. Yeah, so Hellboy... Okay. Now, this is going to be hard, because it starts kind of... like in media res, he's kind of doing his own thing and whatever, and then everything is told through expositional dialogue. So for that reason, I'll try to tell you that the story, at least somewhat in the order that it's told, because it's very stupid. So it starts with Hellboy. He's in Tijuana. He is on a mission to find a guy who was investigating a vampire cult, but he disappeared. And I bring up this scene only because it's at a Lucha Libre spot show in Tijuana, and the whole scene is purple and green, which is very offensive to me as the person who created the art for this podcast.
Yeah, no, they did steal your shine.
It's our bit.
What beautiful art it is.
This movie that came out in 2019 totally bit my shit. But he kills the guy. There's this really weird, forced, sentimental moment between these two characters we've never seen before.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean...
Hellboy's called back to the organization he works with. Aaron, do you know the 4 letters?
The BRPD?
Yeah, so yeah, the BRPD, where his dad is... there's the scene where you introduce that he files down his horns. It's really funny because when he's filing down the horns just wobble on his head, very clearly a prosthetic.
Oh yeah, it looks terrible. I do have to say that it's the BPRD. I just quoted the Baton Rouge Police Department.
Oh, damn.
Okay. Close enough. Who cares? It's a bad acronym.
Yeah, it's kind of clumsy, but... Ian McShane plays the father, and I will say Ian McShane is always a high point for me in any movie. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, Aaron, in the opening scene, he has these shitty quips that they tossed in over top.
Mm-hmm.
But he delivers them so well that I can't be too mad.
Yeah.
He's just has great comedic timing.
Oh yeah, if you watch them, he's in like a Deadwood, like you know that man can throw out a swear word like it's an art form. He's beautiful.
Introduce the themes that Hellboy is conflicted about himself because he's part demon, part human, yada yada yada. Ian McShane is like, you have to go to this club, the Osiris Club or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, strip joint in Jersey.
Now the other one, the British Occult Society, formed in 1866.
And you have to fight some giants with them. Not suspicious at all. This new organization he's never heard of would never do anything bad to him. So he goes there, goes on what is aesthetically just the fox hunt, but there he meets an oracle who, for some reason, in expositional dialogue, explains his origin story to him.
Yeah.
He responds that he doesn't know it. He's like, oh, damn, I did not know that.
Yeah. He's lived his whole life bizarre. Somehow not knowing, and like they don't really establish what he thought happened. like I don't know how you keep away that part of his life.
So I'm Devil Spawn and a Nazi. Great. Thanks, Dad.
Oh, because he's really hung up on the fact that his dad was sent there to kill him, but then didn't end up killing him. But it's like, dude, he didn't kill you for a reason. Like, isn't that like the good part?
He raised you, dumbass. You dumb piece of shit.
He found you and then was like, wait, I want to. This being is like, I can't kill this. I want, and then he raised you as his own son.
So she's an oracle. They call her the seer. She explains that he was brought into this world by Nazis trying to do magic to win the war. The flashback scene has the highlight role of the film, which is Thomas Hayden Church as Lobster Johnson, aka the Claw.
And for the rest of you goose-stepping bastards, beware my claw, for I have come to inflict justice.
It's just great to see him in anything. I love the man. Great in Sideways and Spider-Man 3.
Yes, a high point whenever he's in anything, pretty much. I was happy to see him in that part that they cram in here just to set up sequels that will never exist.
Yeah, so he's conflicted. He's a demon who was raised by Nazis. yada yada yada. I'll bring you to the point of the climax on the villains just to get their thing going. First time we see this pig guy. He's introduced in a scene where he talks to a witch, and he is CGI'd into the scene as a silhouette. It looks terrible, but he's told, he has to go, start collecting the mother boxes.
I will guide you to a witch, Vivian Nimue, cut to pieces but alive and waiting. Restore her.
So he runs around collecting the mother boxes. It's not very interesting. He wants to get the mother boxes for a reasonable detail later. The witch lady is brought back. She's slowly gaining her power as each part of her body that's in these boxes is sewn together. And she hates the world because of reality television.
Look at this. A world ravaged by war and poverty. Led by feckless fearmongers. They've replaced swords with singing competitions.
On the other end, Hellboy is at the hunt as he thinks he's about to help them fight the giants. The club turns on him.
We will never allow the devil to sit on the throne of England and usher in the apocalypse.
Then the club gets murdered by the giants off screen after he's knocked out. And then cue probably my least favorite scene in the movie, which is the giant fight scene.
In the movie? In film history, my guy.
See, this is one of the few scenes I remember from my original viewing of this, because A, I wasn't asleep yet, because it was early on in the movie, and B, I just remember laughing hysterically at it, because it has like the edgiest Muse song possible. It's it's one of their like newer songs. It's like insanely edgy. And it's just the tracking of the special, like the CGI models in this scene, and particularly throughout the whole rest of the movie, but we'll say for the scene, is just atrocious, and it's so funny.
Well, in the behind-the-scenes feature, they detail how they pieced it together from various shots. And if you see how they're operating the camera and how all the references are placed, they just do not care about the matching enough to have it, cut together very well in post, and that very much shows through. It's very lackadaisical, the reference points that are put in front of David Harbour, so he hits the right things, and it's all just a fucking mess. But the thing that this scene introduces that I think is the most off-putting part of the overly edginess is the gore. And gore can be fun. I love horror comedy. Evil Dead's my favorite movie. But there are fun kinds of gore, and eye mutilation is not one of them. And this scene has like 6 instances of eye mutilation. Yeah, it's just upsetting.
It's one of the most off-putting ones you could do.
When he started the eye mutilation, I thought it was a setup for a Odyssey joke. Like, in the Odyssey, when he blinds the giant and then he says his name is Nobody, and then the giant yells that nobody is attacking him, and so everyone thinks he's okay. Like, I thought they were going to do, like, a weird gag, but he's just eye mutilating them for no reason. It's just disgusting and strange. It doesn't set up anything, and for the most part, it doesn't even really help him win the fights. He just keeps doing it.
Eye mutilation in horror been utilized very effectively. It's Lucio Fulci's his signature thing because it's gross and unsettling. It's in Zombie. It's in like all of his movies. It makes for some iconic things, but this nonchalance in which it's thrown in is upsetting. And it's not just the eye gouging, because the way that he kills the final giant is just putting the sword into the back of his head and splitting his skull in just a unpleasant way. Yeah. It's just so gross.
And I was going to say, to piggyback off of what you just said about it being utilized effectively in other movies, I think the main difference there is the tone. Because, like, this portrays the eye mutilation as the fun, goofy, Evil Dead-esque thing.
Yeah, and it's forcing it so hard into you because it's this tracking shot that's moving all the time, and then there's this song with a strong beat that's playing, and it's like, isn't this fun?
It's not playing it to like shock you and gross you out. It's playing it for laughs, but so your brain doesn't know. It's like, oh, what?
It's just awful. But so he passes out for no reason after that fight. He gets abducted by a group of people that never shows up again. He wakes up with the one person that abducted him. It's Alice. It's revealed at some point in the story that Alice was at one point replaced by a changeling, and Hellboy helped her parents get rid of the changeling, and the changeling turns out to be the pig man, so that's why he's trying to get his revenge.
I could have had a real life filled with light and happiness. Hellboy stole that from me.
I actually think it's adorable that the big pig monster bad guy is mad at Hellboy because he just wanted to live that kid's life. Like, he just wanted to be loved.
He wants to be baby.
Yeah.
He is baby.
Yeah, and that's just
Hellboy
cute.
wouldn't let him.
Yeah. That's very mean, I mean, sure, that child was going to have its life destroyed, but,
So Alice is his old friend. There's this really embarrassing thing where she introduces herself to him by reading Jabberwocky, and things go out of focus. It's so poorly executed. And around this time, one of the other deleted scenes that I thought was cool and could have just been in it because it was only 30 seconds long is, and it plays to the theme that Hellboy is being seduced by Nimue.
Yes, that's exactly what I said when we watched it.
It
helps you. It's like, oh yeah, wait, she's trying to be a seductress and use her sexual appeal to get in Hellboy's head. And that's not something you see throughout the rest of the movie, a lot.
They try to put it in one scene, and it doesn't play well at all. But right. The scene, it's there. He's in a shower, and then all of a sudden, she's behind him, and then the shower starts pouring blood, and it's this stark white shower, and it's very visually striking, and it more plays to what I associate with Neil Marshall, and that's what I think I liked about it, is it was just kind of cool. And that's okay. You can just have things like that in a movie if it's not that much screen time.
Also, the Nimue is the Lady of the Lake in Arthurian legend. That's who Nimue is.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I didn't know that was the same.
The movie doesn't directly state it, I think, at all. No. I only know that because I'm a nerd. For certain Arthurian bullshit things, but
hey, I played Lancelot in my high school production of Spam-A-Lot, so I mean. I'm kind of a historical record on the subject.
But I assume, once again, I've not read far enough into because this story arc is from 14 years into Hellboy's existence. I've not gotten into that. But the Hellboy stories generally play with the tropes of these stories and these, because it's usually real legends or I shouldn't say real, but from our world.
Fictitious,
legends that play into, they have some sort of sense of reality even though they didn't happen.
Yes, and normally they're, he puts a twist on them, and I assume the Lady of the Lake thing and her also being this evil blood queen in the actual comic applies to anything. I assume that in the original thing it probably is a story point, her betrayal of King Arthur and Merlin or whatever, but none of that is in here as an element at all.
If it was, I may have recognized that she was the Lady of the Lake, but because it's so disconnected, I didn't even think about it.
So after this scene, this is finally when Hellboy is thrown into the plot, which that deleted scene would have helped be some sort of preamble that made him start being aware of it. But after that, Ian McShane and the whole crew of the DPRK or whatever show up.
R.I.P.D.
Yeah, the R.I.P.D.
They all show up, and attack Alice because they think she's malicious or something. It's not just enough to introduce that Alice is a sidekick. We also have to introduce the other guy who I'm forgetting. It's like Bibio. And this is another thing that was a problem during production, is that originally this character was cast with a white guy, when in the comics he's very much Asian, and that caused a lot of drama with fans and stuff. So they recast him.
I'm really excited to have an Asian American superhero as well. I know that there aren't very many representations of that in film.
The actor, I don't know his name off the top of my head. He's fine.
Daimyo is the character's name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, he's played by Daniel Day Kim, who I only really know for playing Johnny Gat in the Saints Row games.
I'm gonna skull fuck that bitch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's not great in this. I mean, nobody is, so it's just kind of what it is.
Yeah, so now it's Hellboy, Alice, and Bimbo. All three of them now, their goal is to stop Nimue. So there's a scene, and then there's a scene where Hellboy and Nimue kind of meet one-on-one because she appears to him like through magic or something. And this scene stood out to me because Nimue's standing in this like Twilight Grove, which is like a Lovecraft staple imagery, but it's so poorly the background is so poorly implemented and rendered. It looks like a pre-rendered cutscene from Final Fantasy or any other Square Enix game, and it looks so bad.
Oh yeah, that is the aesthetic. The pre-rendered full motion video stuff in Final Fantasy is pretty accurate to this if you attach those scenes to a CW superhero show.
So turns out Hellboy, like Lois Lane, he's the key to all of this. And because he's this, he was meant to bring about the end of the world, and that's why the Nazis brought him. Nimue is trying to leverage him to bring about the end of the world because she can't do it herself. So the whole thing is she has to get Excalibur into his hands and have him utilize it for bad. And that's the drive of the plot. There's just a bunch of fight scenes that lead us there. At one point, Hellboy and Alice meet Merlin, and there's another exposition dump, and that's where we learn that Hellboy, his mother was actually human, so he's half demon, which he didn't know to that point. I mean, we've been calling him half demon because we know, but he just learns that then. This is only like halfway because the second half of the movie is just all the climax and not much happens. Because I hit the 1 hour 10-minute mark and I went, oh my fucking god, because Alice Cooper's Welcome to My Nightmare started playing, and you started seeing Nimue making her way throughout the earth. And I take it back, the giant scene. There are much worse things in this movie. I think about it.
Well, can we make a footnote about all the needle drops in this movie?
There's 400 of them.
There's so many.
I swear it's every other scene. There's just a popular song that plays for like 10 seconds, and it's like, why? Why is this in here?
The two most common points of like, oh, this had horrible studio interference are 2 cinematographers and 500 needle drops to try to cover the movie with something people might like.
Or like relate to in some way. I think I've heard that song.
Yeah, it's a good song. Alice Cooper made some good songs at points in time.
Yeah, no, he really did.
At some point, there's a scene where Hellboy confronts the Baba Yaga, which I think was only put into this movie to be like, haha, John Wick doesn't know what the Baba Yaga was, because they through misnomer said Baba Yaga in that movie when they meant some other similarly named thing, but it's a witch that lives in a house with legs and eats children, which puts Hellboy off, and they kind of fight, whatever. But this is when Nimue starts bringing about the she's starting to spread the plague, and there's scenes of her just walking around spreading the plague, and that's where she is. They show up to stop her at the tree they fail for some reason. There's an appearance from an Arthurian character. She's a blonde woman that appears after they try to foil her and fail, but she doesn't play into the actual final cut of the movie in the first scene, but in the deleted scene she has like some lines. So in the movie she just appears.
Yeah.
And I don't know who was that.
She I can't think of her name for at this second, but she betrayed the Blood Queen to like take her spot, but in like a less threatening way.
It was like her sister, right?
Probably. I mean,
I don't remember her name.
You could tell me anything. But just underlining the fact that in the movie, you don't know who the fuck she is. She just appears in that scene because you're not set up at the beginning, like in the original cut, which is something you can't just leave on the floor in the editing room.
She grotesquely squishes her friends to death with the Force.
Oh yeah.
I just found that scene really weird. The Blood Queen's powers are really strangely defined, and I don't really know what she can and can't do.
No.
It's just gobbledygook. She can do whatever the script needs her to do at that moment, I guess.
She spreads the plague, and it visually is represented by some sort of, like, bug swarm.
Yeah. Which made me think a lot of The Mummy. It's from 2017.
Yeah. If I can give this movie one piece of positive credit, the bug stuff looks exactly the same as The Mummy, which is bad, but The Mummy cost 3 times as much to make.
That's true. That's true. So, the Blood... don't want to go and mention that the Blood Queen gives a speech to a bunch of like various fantasy monsters, and they all look like the creatures from George Lucas's Strange Magic.
We wanted the film to be very realistic looking,
Oh, that's it. Okay, I was losing my mind because I knew I had seen those boys. I knew it. And when they're crawling up on the rocks, I was like, what have I seen these guys in?
Okay,
it's the trailer for Strange Magic.
A little bit of that, a little bit of the Spiderwick Chronicles. And speaking to both of those, the rendering limitations at the time that those movies were made, they look horrendous.
Yes.
Well, it doesn't look much better here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
that
was his point.
Oh, sorry, I misheard you.
Yeah. However, I gotta say that, like, with, like, the Pigman, the render is not as bad as the rigging. He doesn't look great, but, like, it's the actual, like, mouth animation and his body movements and stuff that make you go, oh no. Like, way more so than the render. Like, there's a lot of poorly rendered stuff, but, like, because he's like I think he's a costume that they CGI'd onto.
So, yeah, some shots it's just the costume itself, and that's really when it underlines itself, because it'll be like a shot where it's a motorized mouth and everything, and the actual lighting that's physically there, you can see it, and then it cuts to a shot where it's CG and the lighting rig on it is completely different.
Oh yeah, it's poorly integrated into the scene. His movements become like way more like unnatural and weird, even compared to like a rotor mouth. And he suddenly looks terrible sometimes. Usually when he's like really talking and like the focus of the shot. I don't know. I've never seen effects work that's quite like this.
No, it's really in its own distinct. It's so unique because I mean I was pretty surprised that they even went into this movie aiming for a $50 million budget, because it seems like the kind of scope that they're going for with, box office and everything, it seemed like they would have put a little bit more in, but because of that budget, like the effects have this very uncanny specificness to it.
Yeah. No, I think that they were intending, this is a complete guess, but I think they were intending for this to be the same kind of internationally but internationally popular B-R thing like the Resident Evil films and Underworld, which are similarly budgeted.
You mean because they cast Mila Jovovich as the antagonist of this movie? No, it couldn't be that.
No, that couldn't possibly point in that direction.
She's such a pro. And especially in terms of these genre movies, like, she really understands this world.
But I will say that the scale of those movies is smaller.
Yes.
While they have set pieces and, like, you'll have, like, a bunch of wolves fighting a bunch of vampires or a massive amount of zombies on screen, none of those things cost as much as, like, a massive city invasion by sky demons and stuff. And they just...
You say that like... Well, you say that like it's a trope, and I think it has become a trope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's trying to be, Marvel movies. Marvel movies have ruined, like, attempting to be a big budget thing because they all hit the same beats. There's a point where the villain takes control, and I'll bring us to that point in the story right now. So Nimue leads Hellboy to where Excalibur is to bait him into pulling it. He fights the Pigman. It turns out his sidekick is a were-jaguar. They fight the Pigman, yada yada. Then I don't remember why. I don't care. He pulls Excalibur out, which is and he sees a vision of this before, but that's what kicks in the coming of the apocalypse, and that's what she was baiting him to do, was hold Excalibur. So his horns grow back, and hell opens up, and demons start coming out of like the ground and the sky. But that is a product of the Marvel idea of, the kind of is usually characterized by the blue beam in the sky that, like, beacons in a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, because I like, in my head, Neil Marshall making a Underworld Resident Evil scale Hellboy movie, like, that actually was written to suit that scale, would probably be pretty good. It would probably be a pretty fun thing to watch.
Well, yeah, and the character of Hellboy lends itself to, like, small stories. It's any comic does, really.
Yeah. No, Hellboy's done tons of stuff that's, like, very small scale. The original Hellboy movies are not big budget movies. They they have significant budgets, but compared to, like, any other superhero property, they're like half. The first one cost like $65, and the second one cost like $80, and it's and they look great, but they tell stories that are just like, oh, here's the robot Nazi, and he's gonna stab you, and not 5 million monsters fall from the sky.
It's unpretentious too, is what underlines what makes those movies work. It's just, here's Hellboy, he's gonna do this stuff. It's not like trying to pull from all of the most grandiose elements of all the comics you can reference.
Yes.
It's a contained little story with these fun characters that you like, and these characters you don't like because they're all just quit machines.
Yeah, they don't stand out from each other at all, except for one of them is played by Ian McShane, so I like that one.
One quip that I looked at the IMDb trivia and it was mentioned, but one of the quips is like, it's in the trailer too. He's like,
"We belong together, you and I."
We do, but this is not gonna work, because I'm a Capricorn and you're fucking nuts!
I'm going, I'm posing with my Funko Pops right now, but it's just so funny because that's not his sign. He has a birthday in the comics, so the adhering to the comics is completely thrown out the window because of all the rewrites on set, because David Harbour probably thought that was a funny line, and could he have looked up Hellboy's birthday? Yeah, he easily could have looked up Hellboy's birthday, but he says the wrong sign.
That's like extra credit, dude. You don't gotta do that. You don't gotta fill out the extra credit for the test. It's fine.
But we've established that actors love looking at wiki articles, so I mean...
The escape plan actors went the extra mile to look up a place on Wikipedia and state a fact verbatim in dialogue.
Yeah, they really did. A+. That's why they get an A+. David Harbour, you get like a C.
So the theoretical blue beam into the sky, though not represented by that in this movie. It's this very awkward thing because it establishes these locations in England earlier when Nimue is spreading the plague throughout them. But the climax is happening at this church where Excalibur is. It's very centralized, but then all of a sudden it cuts to the demon stuff for like 3 shots and shows these demons coming out of the sky and killing people. And then it only comes back once when they, someone hits the button and they all turn off. Like, and that the whole trope, I think, of a bunch of things appear and then they disappear when you just do something remotely a distance away. That all comes from Phantom Menace.
Yeah, no, I to my knowledge, that's the first thing. And it's actually amazing how influential the Phantom Menace is.
I mean, it was a phenomenon. I mean, it was a huge movie and everyone fucking saw it.
Oh yeah, no, it is. It's just like, every normie, like hates it on like a angry level, like especially people who do like, this kind of stuff. So like you'd expect people to be like, oh, I don't want to be like that poo-poo movie. But the Infinity War has the same set piece.
Infinity War, Black Panther, the other Marvel movie.
Yeah, half
the other Avenger, the first Avenger movie.
Insert Marvel movie here.
The Zack Snyder's Justice League, Suicide Squad. It's all very tropey, but what really underlines this scene out of all those other scenes is this scene is trying to be edgy because it's got gore. It is for bad dudes. So these demons, the violence that they portray obviously has to be a lot more guttural and stuff, but the first thing you see is one of them skinning someone alive.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
No.
No.
It's so disgusting. I wanted to puke in the theater, and it's like, you did not earn that reaction. If that was playing to some sort of thing that was set up or something, or if it meant anything, sure. But it is just so gross for only the sake of being gross. That's what makes this scene the bottom of the barrel for me, because the giant scene has some of those elements, but this is just grotesque and overdone. And I'm saying this is someone, like I said, who loves gore in horror movies. It's just context.
One of the scenes I actually thought was kind of funny in the movie was earlier. The pig man is collecting the limbs of the Blood Queen, and he goes into like this church, and like there's just a shot where like you just see like shitty fake arms flying against the wall, and like, that kind of stuff amuses me. That's like, oh, okay, that's fun camp. Or Hellboy kicks a skeleton guy and his head comes off or whatever. It's like, sure, but
Army of Darkness type stuff.
Yeah. But they have that in here, but it's mixed with stuff like that, where it's like, the movie doesn't play the Blood Queen like that scary. It isn't trying to be like, oh, this villain is like the scariest monster or creature possible. But
she's exclusively sexy.
Yes, and occasionally jokey. Like when she's watching reality television.
Yeah, and they, as we'll talk about in a second, there was some stuff that was cut out that made her even more jokey.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden her guys are ripping people's faces off, and it's just like, it feels so jarring, because it's not even like comedic violence, it's just upsetting.
It would also, like you mentioned, Dylan, before, if it was set up, and I think, I don't know, one conceivable way you could have just showed everyday humans being assholes for no reason, like, or something. I don't know. There's nothing. Yeah, it's just like all these innocent people, and it's like, this is just
the only reason they show that she hates humanity is she sees a reality television show, and it's like a game show. It's not even like Keeping Up with the Kardashians or anything. So it's portrayed super loose. But so someone gets skinned, people get torn into different ways.
Just ripped in half.
It's just upsetting.
The previs is very funny.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's annoying to me, because that means that scene was always in there for Neil Marshall's vision, because he likes gore.
Yeah.
But
it might have fit more tonally, at least.
Yes, that's a high possibility at the very least. So hell opens up, yada yada yada, and it's like, oh no, the world's gonna end because every movie has to have cataclysmic consequences to the villain. Nothing can just be contained. And she's like, I have Hellboy. Haha, I've seduced him. I'm gonna make him do my will. And then he just cuts her head off. He just cuts her head off after she kills his dad. And then the fight scene's over. And Ian McShane comes back from the dead. And we didn't mention this earlier, but Alice has this ability to have other people communicate with someone that's dead, and they appear through her like a ghost coming out of her mouth. But it's not like a wisp of like vapor or anything. Alice's insides go inside out through her mouth, and like float. It is so gross.
Her lady just came out my fucking mouth.
Oh yeah, that is absolutely repulsive.
Abhorrent.
And, yeah. And it's happening in the context of this scene with his dad.
The last time he's ever going to see his dad, probably.
Yeah, when she conjures the image of Ian McShane, and he's giving this heartfelt, like father-to-son talk with Hellboy, when he's in this just disgusting CGI mess of a cloud.
You are mankind's best and only hope, my boy.
Please don't go.
It's like, what
it's
the
tone
hell,
deaf.
man?
It's tone deaf.
Yeah.
And he's poorly deep faked onto this poorly CGI flesh, and it's just one of the worst looking things possible.
Oh, I hate it, man. I really hate it. But this is the end of the movie, pretty much. Then they're just like, well, I guess we're a team now. We're a team now. And then there's a epilogue that is heavily used in the trailer because it's a John Wick-esque fight scene that very much feels like the producers were like, we need to have this. This is what's hot right now. They're doing some vague mission and throwing around shitty banter that you would expect from a Marvel movie.
Where's our backup? Come on! Do not sneak up on me like that!
Don't you ever stop bitching.
I'm glad you could join us.
It sucks so bad because the choreography, none of them know how to do it. None of them have any fucking clue what they're doing.
The whole preparation for the fight scenes they're really fun, but they're so technical. And I think the thing that I struggled the most with is I'm such a very chill person.
And in the behind the scenes documentary, David Harbour's like,
one of the qualities I like about Hellboy is he's kind of messy as a fighter. I mean, he's kind of a brawler. He's not really a trained martial artist or trained MMA guy who really knows how to move. There's a rough and tumble nature to it, which I think I bring to it, which I like. So kind of the less trained I am, I think it sort of works for the character in that way.
I don't want to make it seem like I know what I'm doing. And that comes off through all the actors are struggling to hit their fucking beats.
Yeah, and David Harbour naturally kind of has a physicality like Hellboy, but he somehow doesn't exhibit it in this at all.
No.
He has like a complete lack of presence despite being like a large, horribly discolored ape man. I don't really get it. Like, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to add up. It's like all the pieces should be there, but it just didn't. It just didn't work.
I gave you all the elements, Mr. Hellboy. I gave you all of the character elements. You could have been likable.
You could have been 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
So then the movie proper ends, but then there's a post-credit scene where Hellboy's at his father's grave boozing up. It's probably the most inline thing his character does in the whole movie. Yep. And the ghost of Lobster Johnson shows up. And rightfully so, Hellboy's like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. But Lobster Johnson walks away, and then it's a close-up of his face. And the last line of the movie is,
wow. All right, that happened.
So that just happened.
Yeah.
It's parody. That is on the level of parody.
Yeah.
It's the cringe meter's off the charts.
Well,
that is the line that people point to when it's like define soy dialogue for me. Cringe.
Yeah. Yeah, just like how in Justice League I cringed out of my body when they said English.
I can override the security protocols, but there's no time to repair all the electrical damage that Luthor's power surges caused to the primary capacitors.
English.
I cringed very hard at that. But that's not the last scene in the movie. There's another post-credit scene.
That's true.
Wait, there is?
Yeah, did you? Oh, you didn't?
I didn't even see this one.
You see, Aaron saved the day because I was convinced you had told me, hey, make sure you watch the end credit scene. And so we watched the scene where he's at his father's gravestone. And after that, I was like, oh, we should turn it off. There's nothing else. And Aaron was like, I think there might be something else. And then there was.
Well, the reason I turned it off is that the music in this movie is so fucking abrasive and terrible. Yeah. That I just couldn't sit through the credits. The music is so bad. It's trying to do it's trying to sound like the John Wick score. So much of this is trying to be John Wick, Lionsgate, trying to replicate the success of those movies. And it's got this guitar mixed with EDM kind of elements, which works in some context, but the way it's executed is just so grating, and it plays during the menus on the disc, and it's awful. But what is this scene? Regale me.
Okay, you see, the Baba Yaga just sits across the table from the camera and talks into it about how, she needs to fuck over Hellboy. And she's talking to a man off screen you never see, and then he just says, he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking wreck a bro. Sequel, and then it ends.
Do you get a hint as to who it is?
He says, what do I get in return? And then she says, I'm going to grant you your greatest wish. And the wish is that he...
A blowjob.
Yes.
From the Baba Yaga with her twisted teeth.
Well, Hellboy already smooched her.
Let's seal it with a kiss.
How do you have hair on your tongue?
Which is also disgusting. There's so many disgusting scenes in this movie. But anyway, his greatest wish, or the thing he wants most in the world, is to finally die.
Yes.
So I guess that's your hint.
Yeah, it just... maybe I will feel stupid if I looked up who that's supposed to be, but, it didn't give me enough to be like, oh, yeah, that's them.
I'm going to type in Hellboy 2019 end credits scene explained.
And what?
Maybe I should write in breakdown too, so I know that I will be told in the most simplest of terms.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, the reason that I had a feeling that there was a second one is that while Lobster Johnson was pointlessly shoved into this movie so that he could be something later, that's not a direct sequel setup. And I knew that the producers of this movie were too confident in it to not put a direct, this is what we're gonna do next time, fam, after we fire Neil Marshall and get somebody else. I knew that they would have that, a direct, oh, here's the character, next movie thing, and they did. And it's terrible.
So it's Koshe the Deathless, who I remember being in the video game that I had on my PSP, and that's about my base with the character. So it seems like he's a big deal in the comics.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's just fascinating to me that they felt the need to restructure this to be a Marvel movie. Hellboy in comics and even in the other movies, all media pretty much has his own tone. He isn't like that. I don't know why you would try to do that. You'd be better off ripping off other material, the other R-rated movies like John Wick fit better than that does.
Because, Aaron, all the kids nowadays love the Marvel movies.
But that is the end of the movie proper, and you know what? I did it in a swiftly, and I'm proud of us. So... special features, we'll just lightly touch on it. We've already described 2 out of 3 of the deleted scenes, but the third one is Nimue throwing some quips around with some police officers. She's like, ew, gum. It's so destructive to the environment because she picks it off of a tree or something.
How does she know what gum is? She's from Arthurian times. Like,
yeah, but she immediately knows what it is and the consequences of it on the earth.
Gum cannot decompose. It is an affront to nature.
And a cop comes up and tries to stop her because she's goofy looking and suspicious, and he's chewing gum, and then she kills the cop.
Yeah.
That's the deleted scene.
Unlike some of the other deleted scenes, it's very much a deleted scene. Something that has, like, no purpose.
Bad.
Terrible.
Good job for omitting that.
One is just an alternate scene, and the other one is one that should not have been deleted.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a full mixed bag of deleted scenes. You don't get that on many discs.
Yeah, because I think we sort of mentioned it before, but it's like you usually get scenes that you go, oh, yeah, I see why this was cut. I see why this hit the cutting room floor, because it doesn't contribute to the story, or it's too long, or whatever. But I don't think I've ever seen one that has just this diverse of a roster of scenes.
It's 3 different deleted scenes representing 3 different types of deleted scenes. Mm-hmm. It's really fascinating. That's the deleted scenes. Then there's previs. You get 2 previs scenes, and it's not like different. You see the different stages because they didn't care enough. It is just the original previs as it was. It looks like shit. Everyone's T-posing, and you get that for the giant scene and the monsters coming in after Excalibur's grabbed.
You also get one for the Leopard Man fight with Pig Man.
Oh, yes.
Okay. That one's the funniest one because the previous version of Leopard Man is so weird looking.
I enjoyed the version of the giant scene because it was revealed. They cut to actual footage, but it was before effects were finished. And it was revealed that David Harbour's frame of reference for hitting the giants with the sword was just like
apple boxes.
Yeah, it was an apple box.
It's just 2 apple boxes that he had to put the sword between.
Yeah, it's like I feel like that's a little. I think you need something more than that.
So that scene is made up of just shots of that level of care put behind the reference for everything.
Well,
It's
the leopard one is interesting because it's way more that the scene as it appears in the previs is more in depth than the final scene. There's more of a fight because in the actual scene, Leopard Man, after being hyped the entire film, the entire movie, they're like, oh, there's something weird about this cop guy. Oh, he tells this story about a leopard man.
The village was under attack by a man-eater. I was the only survivor.
And then it's like, okay, so he's gonna become a leopard man. And then he does it. And then he jumps on this giant boar guy for 10 seconds and then gets owned. And it's like, what was the purpose of that? Well, in the previs, he actually fights him.
Yeah, there's ups and downs to it.
Yeah, and I just don't I don't. Was it budgetary? I just don't get why they would cut those bits because it's what makes the scene make sense.
Now that you mentioned the confusion, when he becomes a leopard, I'm kind of surprised there's no line of dialogue that's like, so he's a leopard now. Yeah, he's a leopard now.
I can picture Hellboy and Alice sitting next to each other and having that dialogue.
That is the previs. Deleted scenes, speaking toward the bargain elements of this disc, very insightful, which is what you want from the disc. Not saying our summary judgment is up next, but I would like to cover the, quote, feature-length documentary, unquote, that is included on the Blu-ray and 4K versions of this. Right off the bat, I'm like, oh, I've been duped because this is not a feature-length documentary. I was stupid back when this came out on Blu-ray because people were talking about the behind-the-scenes thing like it meant anything. I was like, oh, maybe there's going to be some sort of insight as to the struggles behind the scenes, which is so naive. Lionsgate's not going to put that out. But instead, it's just the same kind of electronic press kit stuff that you get on these movies, but They just didn't want to put the effort into cutting it into like 10 different things. So instead, it's 3 chapters making up an hour and 10 minutes instead of, taking the time to cut it.
Oh, so it's just what would have been included in the bonus features anyway?
Uh-huh. And so it just seems like they skewed it as some sort of like feature-length thing to make you not buy the DVD version of this. That's how I read that.
Huh. Yeah, because when you mentioned it, I like it sounds like a sort of, I don't know, third-party view, like a behind the scenes of what happened, you know what I mean?
No, it's a fluff package from Lionsgate, much like you'd find on any movie ever.
Wow.
It's really embarrassing how skewed this is. This whole thing just reeks of arrogance, and just so many people that are interviewed are so just the air about them and the way that they talk about things is so pretentious. Everyone's like, we're not making the Del Toro movies, we're doing Mike Mignola's artistic vision. Like, they fucking care at all. And it's just so gross. They're acting like they're so cool, and they're like, what we're doing is better because it's different.
It's a darker Hellboy. It's a Hellboy with more internal struggle and with more sort of torture. And then it's also a more horror gothic Hellboy than the other ones.
I think the world of Hellboy is really kind of dark and gothic.
This one's a lot darker. I think it's closer to the comic books.
The first segment is interviewing the actors. While there's nothing super revealing about that section, it's very clear that some people are uncomfortable talking about this project in retrospect. I just have some notes here. Something that you don't usually see with these things, but whenever someone's talking about a different movie that they worked on, they don't mention it by name and tiptoe around it. Because David Harbour's like, I was working on a TV show.
I had been playing this role on a television show where he was kind of wildly out of shape.
It's like, I wonder what the fuck that is. I wonder what TV show David K. Harbour was on. Would it really have hurt you, Lionsgate, to mention that a Netflix show exists?
Yes.
All the actors, like, none of them come off terribly. I think a lot of what happened to David Harbour after this movie is just trying to form some sort of ideology in his head that like makes him feel okay about this movie being so poorly received.
One of the things that I find really strange about reboots is that people tend to have to gravitate toward one or another. And I know that coming from a theater background, I've seen the play Hamlet like 20 times with like 20 different actors, and to me each actor brings out or highlights a different quality in the character, and so this is another color of the rainbow that is Hellboy.
Yeah, I was just furious through watching this, but a bunch of times the audio just cuts out. It fades to like almost nothing, that you can't hear anything, like while people are talking, and then fades back up multiple times throughout this. So that shows you how much they fucking cared when putting this together. So lame. I like the part with the effects guys, because effects guys are infamously kind of laid back, kind of quirky dudes. I mean, but even that stuff was laid in with the, like, we're doing this bigger and better.
The bodysuit for Hellboy, much different than the other films, because there's a level of realism added to this that takes you somewhat out of the comic book feeling of the other version of this character.
So I feel like whoever was behind the camera making this stuff was constantly being like, mention this is different.
Yeah.
Mention that this is artistic, this is art.
Oh yeah.
Please.
No, you know the producer's standing behind the camera going, can you explain why this is different and superior to the previous versions of Hellboy?
So it's actors first, third, effects work second, third, and then the third third is talking specifically about like on the set production, and this is where everything is like you start becoming very aware of how skewed everything is, because everyone feels like they're at gunpoint being told what to say and everything. So uncomfortable. And to note, no one mentions Neil Marshall's involvement in the movie, not even once, which is something you never see in these things, because usually actors are like, oh, I love so-and-so, his vision is so important to this movie, but in the last 2 minutes they mention Neil Marshall just as like kind of like throw it in there so people aren't suspicious, I guess. I don't. But this whole thing doesn't have him. We gotta have someone mention him once. Do you want me to edit it in earlier in the thing so it's not? No. It's good. End with that.
It's all right. It's fine.
And with the nice note.
It's good. End note.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because it seems like this went as far as it possibly could without them going, oh, we brought in other director to reshoot 70% of the movie.
I'm surprised they didn't do that, because that's just, that's generally what just happens now.
Yeah, no, all the big studios are doing it. I guess Lionsgate ain't hip yet.
All the cool kids are doing it.
They probably can't, maybe they can't afford possible legal battles, or, can't afford, because they already, they have to pay him a certain amount because of his contract anyway. They couldn't afford to bring on another director or something. Plenty of reasons that could have happened. Yeah. But we kind of referenced this throughout the rest of it. This is the part where we look at the video and audio quality before we give our summary judgments on the disc as a bargain. So you two have your unique experience from mine in that you watched the DVD version. Tell me about the video and audio on the DVD version.
Rip bad.
Just real poopy.
Rip, but in all caps and periods after the letters.
Yes, it doesn't look good. A lot of I don't know, stuff that's this digital does not condense well.
No,
and because you watch like a on film blockbuster or whatever, and you put it in the DVD, and it's not going to look that bad. But this is rough. This was not a good rip.
The saturation of film plays better too. The compression.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Here, every shot and color just looks a little off at all times. There's some jank color clipping going on in a couple shots.
Oh, yeah. That's great. That's how you know it's good, is when there's full-on errors happening, because that's what color clipping is.
Yeah, it wasn't super prevalent, but when it did happen, it was so jarring, and it just immediately drew your eye to it. It was oh my god, this is bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Hellboy's skin is disgustingly pink on Blu-ray and 4K transfer? Because he just looks like he has a fucking rash.
It's an off-red. Gross.
That's something that they play up in the bonus feature too, is he's not going to be as red as the other Hellboy. He's going to be much more muted. He doesn't look like in the fucking comics or anything.
Yeah, the comics have super stark colors.
Oh my god. That's the DVD, and 4K. I'll start with the 4K and work down. The 4K, the digital elements that play poorly on DVD play extremely well in 4K. It's not common for these types of movies to be mastered in 4K. This was shot at 3.4K and mastered at 4, which is the ideal, because then it looks really great on 4K. It's not a 2K master that's up-resed or anything. It looks good. The blacks could be darker. That was my one sticking point, but otherwise, really great presentation on the 4K, ironically, for this god-awful fucking movie. Mm-hmm. The Blu-ray, just watching the Blu-ray, that step down from 4K, I can start seeing the issues that you had on the DVD. Obviously less pronounced and everything, but the digital grain on the Blu-ray, it's just... You don't see that on the 4K, it starts becoming present, and it's just gross. And yeah, the colors... You need 4K for this movie to look good, if that is a concern of yours. But each step lower, the colors just become more washed out, to the point where the DVD by home media enthusiast standards, is probably unwatchable.
It's brutal. It's more common nowadays for DVDs to look like shit because people don't care as much about those transfers. At least that's what I assume. But this was not a strong rip.
So that being said, it is time to determine whether, for you guys, Hellboy on DVD is a bargain. We'll start with you, Evan. Is Hellboy on DVD a bargain?
How much was this?
It was $5.
$5.
Okay. $5. It's weird that I have to think about this, but I guess I'm going to say that it's not a bargain. I did think the deleted scenes were pretty interesting in terms of giving like a scope of all the drama behind the scenes and the creative differences, but that's it, really, because the previs stuff is just like, I don't know. For me, that wasn't a selling point.
No, that never is.
Yeah, because it's just like it just kind of mixes together in my mind in terms of all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so of course the movie itself does not warrant the value either. So yeah, it's not a bargain. If there was a commentary.
Yeah, a commentary. Well, they're not going to bring back
Neil Marshall.
And it's weird to not have the director involved in some way. But Aaron, do you mirror his comments, or do you miraculously think this is a bargain?
The rip's fucking bad, so no. Yeah. Like that alone makes me go no. The special features would have to be very strong for me to be like, this thing that looks like garbage is acceptable.
Well, our gimmick is we look at the special features and everything, but when it comes down to it, you are buying the disc for the movie.
And I'm not saying it even as a quality statement. I'm saying, because bargain includes the fact that this version of it is competent. Which it's not. I think that the special features are fun on a doctor looking at a cadaver level. But they're not interesting enough on their own outside of lending conversation to the topic of holy shit, this project fell apart, for me to be like, these are really cool to check out. Like the Nutjob 2 has much better previs stuff than this does.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
So because whether or not you even care about it, it's like that one clearly just did it better. It was better formatted and laid out. Yeah. These are very lazily placed on the disc.
And for you to care about what the insight behind the deleted scenes, you have to do additional research too.
Yeah,
it's not doesn't stand on its own.
No, it doesn't stand on its own at all. So I think this is very much not a bargain.
Okay, 2 not bargains for the DVD.
Yeah, DVD.
I will be speaking on the perspective of the 4K. The 4K, which I purchased for $10, is a bargain.
Okay.
Normally, you cannot get a $10 4K disc. This is the cheapest of the cheap. No one fucking bought this.
Yeah. I was expecting you to list a much higher price than that.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line usually that 4K hits is $15. So this is a third less than that. It comes with the Blu-ray. It comes with the download card. And the 4K is the ideal way to watch the movie. If this is a movie you like and you want to watch it, or if you're just curious, this is the way to watch it. And for $10, you can't really beat that. And plus, this version has the documentary, which was a huge disappointment, but at least it is an hour and 10 minutes of something that's on the disc.
Yeah, that's a lot of content.
Yeah. The DVD has 10 minutes of content on the disc.
But in any other format, Blu-ray, which I think is $7, or DVD, $5, this is not a fucking bargain. It's going to look like dog shit. Absolutely not. Not a bargain. Overall, 4K is a bargain. That's our summary. So now, this is the point where we say whether or not we recommend the movie itself. And if we do not, we have a replacement recommendation. And whoever went first last time, you do that.
That's you, Evan.
I don't remember.
That's you, Evan.
Evan.
Can Aaron go?
Aaron, okay.
Because I'm definitely not recommending it. I had no idea what I was going to recommend.
Before our recording sessions, you have to come up with 2 movies to talk about. 2 every time. It's never different. Always 2. Aaron, what do you say about this? Do you recommend it? What is your replacement?
Okay, I cannot recommend this. I thought it was terrible. We are not an anger podcast or a hate watch whatever thing. We are pretty gentle with things and considerate of their budgetary restrictions, like what they were trying to do and things like that. But I really disliked this. The first part of it, while bad, I was hoping it would grow into something, but it's so every scene is just like a episode, just like a self-contained, doesn't mean anything really, except for maybe one small piece of information is learned, and then to the next disconnected scene. It's poorly structured. It doesn't look very good. The CGI and stuff are rough, and I don't think these characters were given any justice whatsoever. I can't speak for him because I've never met Mike Mignola, but I feel like he probably wishes he just made Hellboy 3.
Yeah, he just went with whatever Guillermo del Toro was selling.
Yeah.
So then what's your replacement recommendation?
Okay, there's the obvious, watch Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy. It's a lot better. Read comics, do whatever else with this character. But I just want to throw in a low budget compared to blockbuster cinema, R-rated, independent comic book adaptation, and recommend Dread.
Aaron, yes. You bastard. God damn it.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to give mine next.
That was all I had.
Damn, I'm sorry.
That's also Lionsgate, too.
I came in with that one.
Oh, no, that's fair. I don't doubt that.
But I really like Dredd. Dredd in general, the comic book character, has a somewhat larger scale in most stories than that movie. But they used the budget well, and they condensed him to his core elements, and they made something really cool on a comparable budget to this. And by making it, that movie takes place almost entirely in one building, and the outside stuff looks great and has a really interesting dystopian science fiction style, and the costumes look great, but they kept it simple, to the point, small amount of locations and all that, and not too much CG, though there is definitely CG in it. They made a tight, well put together adaptation that captures the spirit and is very good, and I would recommend it to anybody who wants to watch a cool R-rated action movie, which they seem to be trying to make this into.
Clean 80 minutes too, and this is as opposed to this movie's bloated 2-hour runtime.
Yeah, Dread's short.
So I'll go next to give Evan some more time. Don't recommend this movie. It personally upset me the first time I watched it. Coming back to it this time, I hated it less. I was able to see more of what could have been positive qualities, if nothing else. I mean, I still have a very negative opinion of it, but I was a lot less angry this time, but it's still just awful dreck. It is very clearly a studio stepping on toes. Everyone's fighting. It's all on screen. None of that's hidden. So no, I don't recommend this. Instead, I recommend a movie that represents Neil Marshall's vision that I have seen, and it's a really great character piece. I mentioned it before. It's The Descent, which is about a group of women who are they're climbing, doing cave something. And then they get trapped underground with monsters. It has excellent cinematography that is very strong darks and lights, and just love it. Great movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah, that's an easy recommend for me. Evan?
Okay. Yes, I don't recommend this. As Aaron mentioned, we don't like to absolutely rip movies a new one, but it's just awful. It's disgusting. It is tone deaf. Bad. And what I'm going to recommend in place of Hellboy is a different comic book movie called Blade.
Hell
starring
yeah!
Wesley Snipes as Blade, the vampire hunter. And yeah, I just think that it has sort of, it's similar to Dread. It's going for the kind of edgy tone, but it's like it doesn't lean that far into it, but it also sort of accomplishes being a little edgy, but not cringe.
It also miraculously, as a counterpoint to Hellboy, has weird one-liner quips, but they're all so absurd and made up by insane person Wesley Snipes that they're incredible.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Classic. A line that factually was included because he said it out of nowhere in a boardroom meeting, and the screenwriter marked it down and inserted it.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. The action's pretty fun. And overall, it is just a movie in a similar realm that I think accomplishes a lot more and is infinitely more entertaining. It's got Stephen Dorff as the villain. I love Stephen Dorff. Shout out to anyone who's seen one of his earliest roles in an 80s monster movie called The Gate.
Yes.
He's a child actor, and that movie's awesome, and I recommend you watch that, too, because it's great. Anyway, that's all I got.
Okay, so that puts a button on the longest episode yet of the Bargain Binge podcast. You can find us on all of your favorite podcatchers, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. at bargainbingepod.com. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I mean, you can do it on your other ones. Apple Podcasts, though, that helps a lot. So if you like the show, please do that. If you have any questions, concerns, just want to say hi, email us at bargainbingepod@gmail.com, and our Twitter is @bargainbingepod. Next week's bonus episode, we do every other week as bonus, every other week as a review. We're going to be talking remakes and reboots as inspired by our conversation on Hellboy, and we are fired up after this, so hopefully it's going to be a pretty good conversation and we can get Evan to bed in time. But until then, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Aaron.
And I say goodbye.
And I say goodbye.
Fuck.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Botched. Good night.
Sayonara, gamers.
I'm so original. I am doing all of this original stuff. I'm so cool.